friends, and welcome back to Hello Friends. Welcome to episode 41, guys. My name is Kyle, your host. Welcome to Project Potter. After this, guys, we got 3 episodes left. So this is the final episode on disc 3 of the Blu-ray. Very exciting. It's an emotional episode. There's a lot going on in this one. So we're going to get into it here, guys. If you haven't seen the show before, what we're doing is recapping every episode of Mr. Robot. As I mentioned before, we're getting close to the end here. And it is going to be a recap, a score out of 10, and a White Rose Award, which I give for the best actor, actress in the episode. So here we go, guys. The plot is an illusion for the recap. We open up with Dom in the hospital. If you guys remember previously, Darlene and Dom were there, and obviously they took out Janice, and then Dom was like kind of bleeding out, but she called for help, and she's like, hey, if you want to help me, like, go take them down, and the rest is history. So we pick back up with Dom here, and she's like badly injured, and there's an FBI agent, and he tells her basically, hey, just so you know, your family is safe, but he's like, you can't know where they are. And she's like, you don't trust me enough right now to know where my own family is. And he's like, unfortunately right now, no. We find out Dom is under investigation from the FBI, so that's kind of brutal, which would make sense because, you know, she was working with Dark Army and found where there was Dark Army dead agent and all that stuff. So, like, obviously they're not just going to brush it off. There's a great scene where they're like, oh, Dom's like, I need to get home. And they're like, Dom, you're not going anywhere. And she's like, I can release myself, right, against medical orders. And the nurse is like, you could. And she's like, good, well, I want to do that. So there's a great scene, guys, where Dom is being wheeled out by a wheelchair. And the guy's like, hey, just so you know, he's like, who's your pickup contact? And she's like, what do you mean no one's coming to pick me up? And he's like, you can't drive home. She's like, I'm just going to get a cab. And he's like, you can't just get a cab. He's like, someone has to pick you up because we gave you anesthesia. And he's like, is there family, friends, anyone you can talk to? She's like, no. And he's like, okay, I guess we can, you know, look at the Social Security workers list and see if anyone's available. And she's like, sitting outside on the wheelchair, and she starts getting up, and he's like, can I trust you to behave? He's like, or do I have to get security? And Dom is like sitting there, and it's really funny because the door keeps opening and closing. And we get the Mr. Robot title card, but Dom does eventually get home, and she goes home to her apartment. And the first thing she does, she makes grilled cheese with mayo. And I was like, who's putting mayo in the grilled cheese, dude? Like, I don't know. That's some weird shit. But Dom is there, and it's great because it's like just shows her little apartment, and there's like great camera work always from Mr. Robot where it like shows the flame come up and she's burning the grilled cheese, and it's great. Obviously that's just the way she likes it, and she's like very carefully, like that's all she wants to do is make grilled cheese. And so Darlene knocks on the door, and she's got like a dresser in front of the door, and she goes over and she opens it up, and then like Dom lets her through, and she's like, what are you doing here? She's like, well, aren't you supposed to be in the hospital? And she's like, yeah, probably. And she's like, okay. She's like, we need to go. She's like, you're not going to be safe here. Dark Army's going to find us. And Dom's like, I'm not going anywhere. She's like, what are you talking about? She's like, we have to go. We have a plan. She's like, we have fake passports, all that shit. She's like, it's all good. Just come with us. And Dom is like, no, I'm not going anywhere. She's like, I need to see my family. And she's like, I need to wait. And Darlene is like, Dom, I'm not going to let someone else I care about die and sit like while Dark Army just comes over and kills you. Darlene says to her, like, she's like, look around you. This is emptiness. She's like, there's nothing here for you. She's like, you can't do anything. And Dom is like, I'm not alone. She's like, I have Alexa. And Darlene like freaks out, and she takes the Alexa and smashes it on the ground. And she's like, that's not a fucking person. She's like, that's a robot. She's like, all you do is use it to order paper towels. She's like, that's not another person. And it's true. So she starts packing her shit, and they're like having a conversation, and Dom is still like, you know, a little hesitant to go, but she gets mad because she's like, why did you break my Alexa and all that shit? But we cut briefly then to Elliot, and he's got the USB drive that Philip Price gave him where he said, this is all the information you ever need to know about White Rose's project. So he's reading, and it's talking about the Congo and the Washington Township Station. And it's a brief scene. There's no words from Elliot. He's on the computer, and then he's at like a motel where Darlene and Dom show up there, and Elliot's like sitting outside the curb. He's smoking a cigarette, which I don't think we've seen him do before. Well, he has started smoking a cigarette, like when he was pretending to break into like virtual reality and all that stuff. But I don't know if we've ever actually seen him like smoke a cigarette. So he's sitting there, and Darlene shows up, and she's like, hey, like, I'll just be a minute. She's like, go to the room, and like, I'll be in there in just a minute. So she talks to Elliot, and she's like, hey, she's like, you're not coming with us, are you? And he's like, no. He's like, I can't. He's like, I got things to do. And she's like, okay, well, there's like this emotional moment where she's like, what would you recommend, for a road trip? And he's like, I don't know, I've never been on one. But he's like, they hug, and he's like, I'd recommend Sour Patch Kids though. And it's really sweet, and it's like they have a long hug. We cut to Dom, and she's trying to get an Orange Crush, which is the best soda. She's trying to get an Orange Crush out of a vending machine, and she's doing the thing where she's got like a crumply dollar, and everyone has been there, dude, where she puts the dollar in and presses the button, and it doesn't work, and it spits the dollar back out. And then she takes it, she puts the dollar back in, presses the button, doesn't work. And I'm like, we have all been there, dude. She does see like a nice moment where from a different angle, it's just like a long hug from Elliot and Darlene. So she kind of knows what's up there. And she goes to the room, and there's the TV on already. She turns around, and Leon is there. And she's like, holy shit. And he's like, oh, what's up, cuz? And he's like rolling a joint, and he's talking. And she's like, what are you doing here? He's like, do I know you? And she's like, do you know me? She's like, the barn? And he's like, it doesn't ring a bell. And she's like, you shot 4 people. And he's like, oh yeah. He's like, that's where I know you from. And he's like, it's all good. He's like, I don't work for them anymore. He's like, I'm helping out Elliot. She's like, so what do you like, a gun for hire? And he's like, kind of. And he talks about this movie. I forget which one he mentions, but he's like, it's not the how or the why, it's how much or some shit. I forget. It's a really nice moment that I'm just butchering because I don't remember it. But it's funny because Darlene walks in, and she goes, Dom is like scared in the corner, and Leon's just chilling. And Darlene walks in, she's like, oh shit, I forgot to tell you that he's working with us now. So that's a funny little moment. And then they get in the car, and Dom's in the front seat, and she's like really, really good at like subtle acting by Grace here, because she's sitting there and she's just so like depressed and out of it. And like you can tell because she's like looking, her head's like back, she's looking out the window, and she's just like not really responding to anything. We find out in this episode that she has been having trouble sleeping for a while. They're going to Logan Airport in Boston, which is awesome because I'm from Boston, or not from Boston, but I'm about 45 minutes out of Logan. So that's the airport that I go to. Really cool to see all the Boston stuff later on. But so Dom is like, I've never been this way to Boston before. And Leon's like, well, we're taking the scenic route. He's like, you know why? He's like, because Connecticut, believe it or not, is full of a bunch of Dark Army agents. And he's like, it's also full of R.W.A.s. She looks at him, and he's like, rich white assholes. So Leon then is like, we got to stop soon. He's like, I drank way too much Code Red today. He's like, I got to piss that out. He's like, I got to take a whiz. So they stop at a rest area in Connecticut, and Darlene and Dom are waiting outside the restroom, and there's a bunch of people, and they're like, wow, look at all these people here. And they can't believe it. And they're like, well, yeah. She's like, honestly, now it's just back to the grind. So she's like, the holidays are over, so everyone's just back at the 9 to 5 grind or whatever. And so Dom is like, or excuse me, Darlene is like, you know what, come here. She's like, I want to show you something. And we do find out earlier in the episode as well that I think it's Darlene and Elliot, when they talk, they're like, the hack the transfer is ready to go. She's like, it's completely untraceable now. She's like, everything's secured and encrypted. So she's basically like, the money transfer that we got, like the attack on White Rose. She's like, we're good. Like, she's like, we're in the clear, dude. And so they sit down on a bench, and Dom is like, shouldn't we not be like walking around like that? And Darlene's like, probably. And she's like, okay, so what are we doing? And Darlene's like, every now and then I just want to take a minute and forget the paranoia. And she's like, just take in for this moment. And she's sitting there, and like everyone's just walking around, and Dom is like, I'm sorry, what is this moment? And then Darlene is like, just watch. And she pulls up her phone, and she does the transfer, and there's like a little bit of code there. And then she's like smiling, and it's really, really great. I love Carly's reaction here because it says like transfer to wallets completed. And she just sits there, and she's like, just watch. And Dom is like, what are you talking about? She's like, Darlene, did you do something illegal again? She's like, I swear, Darlene. She's like, what is it with you in trouble? She's like, blah, blah. She's like lecturing her. And Darlene actually goes to kiss her to shut her up. Which is a nice moment. And she goes, shut the fuck up for a second. And she's like, watch. She's like, have some patience. And there's all these people talking, and it's like this guy walking his dog, and this couple talking with their kid, and they're all just having a normal time. And then some time passes by, and then all of a sudden, like Dom gets a notification, and all these people get a notification. And they start looking at their phones, and these people are just like, they look at their phone, and they're like, and they're kind of looking at it, and then they're like talking to someone else, and everyone's looking at the same time, and people are smiling, and then people start like celebrating, and they're looking at the phones and stuff, and it's really, really awesome because Carly is like, she's got just like a smile on her face, and she's like, it's pure joy, and it's excellent acting by Carly in this scene. And Dom gets the notification, and she's like, "What did you do?" And she's like, "All of that money that White Rose's Goonies took from these people all these times." She's like, "We just distributed it back to the people." She's like, and Dom gets the notification on her phone, and she's like, "Everyone got this amount?" And Darlene's like, "Yep." And she's like, "How?" And she's like, "We found a way to anonymously distribute it to everyone's wallet." And she's like, because eCorp wants to be independent from the US dollar, she's like, there is no possible way that they can refund it or cancel the transaction. And it's so cool because, Dom looks, she's like, "Look around, Dom." And people are like singing this, like, they're so happy, and they're like, "Oh my God, I can't believe it," and stuff. I mean, there's no dialogue in the scene, but Darlene, like, the music is playing, and it's just such an awesome moment. It's so cool, dude, because it's literally like, Darlene is literally like, dude, everything we've worked for has led up to this moment. And there's like one girl who's about to cry, and there's a couple, and they're laughing, they're looking at each other, and it's really awesome. And then Darlene starts like screaming, and she starts like wooing and stuff, and Dom is like, "People are looking at you." She's like, "I don't give a fuck," and she's like, "Woo!" And people are like looking at her, and they're laughing, and it's probably the nicest moment in Mr. Robot in the whole series, dude. It's so awesome because everyone is just super happy, and it's like, imagine if you just got a bunch of money in your account all at the same time. It's so cool, and it's great music, and I was tearing up watching it because it's just a nice moment. So we cut back to the car, and then Darlene is like scrolling through Twitter. She's got her Sour Patch Kids, which is a nice little touch. And she's going through Twitter, and it says like, hashtag eCoin Payday, and everyone says like happy hour starts early. eCoin Payday is popping off, and she says like, they say scared to touch this, but man, I feel like someone's gonna come get me, stuff like that. But she's just reading through it. She's like, I'm moving out. Just gotta have a movie when I miss. Oh damn, everyone's got eCoin Payday. It's just really awesome. It's super super cool because it's so realistic. Like that would happen on Twitter 100% if something like that happened. That already happens on Twitter with stuff like that. So they get to Logan, and Leon says, there is work for you here. He's like, if you ever come back, he's like, you're a boss because you're a boss, girl. And she's like, I'm going to lay low for a little. He's like, all right. So Dom and Darlene go into Logan, and, they're trying to get away. And we find out eventually that they're going to Budapest. But before that happens, Dom goes into a side shop there. And again, it's really cool because it's at Logan. So there's like Red Sox stuff in the background and Celtic stuff in the background. And then we have the books, and there's a whole bunch of copies of Beach Towel, which we see there's a name. The first part of the name is covered up because I don't know if they ever give him a first name, but Irving is the last name. And Dom's looking at the book, and she's like, huh. And then she's sitting there, and all of a sudden she hears Irving's voice. And he goes, Dom? And she's like, Grace has this awesome look on her face where she's like, holy shit, she can't believe it. And it's really great because it cuts to Bobby Cannavale as Irving, and he's standing next to his cutout where he's like holding the book. And he's like, how are you? He's like, it's been so long. And Dom is just standing there, and she's like so scared. And they're trying to get away from Dark Army, and we think they're good. And then all of a sudden, Irving is standing there. Now, if you guys remember, Irving basically said like he's kind of done. Not that he's done with Dark Army, but that he's like, he did say after the barn that he's just gonna go after the verbal confirmation that he's gonna go and kind of like lay low. And so. And I think it was White Rose's right-hand man at the time said, like, you can't go anywhere. And he's like, I've done my time. He's like, I'm good. So he kind of goes by his own ways, Irving. So, and Bobby's character is amazing. So we don't know if he's actually working with Dark Army anymore, but basically he's talking about his book, and he's like, it's a real page turner. He's like, especially when he strangles the mother to death. And Dom is like, are you after me or whatever? And he's like, what are you talking about? He says like, are you going to hurt me? He's like, why would I hurt you, Dom? And she's like, I disobeyed orders. I took out my handler. And Bobby's like, or Irving's character, he's like, oh, she was a pain in the ass anyway. He's like, if anything, you did them a favor, believe me. But he's like, the word around the camp is that, you know, they don't care about you two anymore. He's like, they moved on to bigger things. He's like, Dark Army's moving, and he's like, they don't care about you guys at all. She's like, my family isn't going to be attacked, and he's like, I'm telling you, Dom, Dark Army does not care about your family anymore. And so basically, like, this is awesome because he tells her that they're free. Like, they don't have to run. Their life is not in danger. Dark Army doesn't care about them anymore. You know, their money is gone. And so that's it. But it's funny because he like signs the book and then he's like, you still got to pay for that, you know? And then he turns to the cashier and he's like, make sure she pays for that. And so he walks away and it's like, he's super nice. And it's really like a tense scene because you think he's going to go crazy or something, but he's just being super nice. And he's just like, yo, it's all good. Don't worry about it. But it's a huge scene. And so she like looks over actually at Darlene, and Bobby says, excuse me, I should stop calling him Bobby. Irving says, is that Elliot's sister? He's like, I always knew there was something between you two. And it's just funny that characters are saying that now because there's obviously like a real love connection between those two characters. And he's like, oh, okay. And, you know, that's when he says like they're all good and good to go. So he just walks away. She buys the book, and then that's like the back of the book. It's funny. It's a picture of Irving, and she goes over and talks to Darlene, who's at the bar, and she's like, so we're just good now? And he's like, yeah, they said they just don't care about us anymore. So like, we're just good. And she's like, well, where did Dark Army go? She's like, I don't know. But she's like, we don't have to run anymore. And she's like, well, that means we don't have to go to Budapest. And Darlene is like, yeah, but we're already here, so we should just go. And she's like, but we don't need to go. And they start like kind of packing up, and she's like, well, you know what, we should just take a break. Like Darlene tells her, like, you know, let's just let go. And she's like, let's just go together. And eventually, at some point in this episode, I think it's when they're back in the apartment, where Darlene asks her, like, why Budapest? Or excuse me, Dom asks her why Budapest, and Darlene says, like, that's where Cisco wanted to go. But obviously everything happened with Cisco, and she's like, now I like feel like I have to go or whatever. And there's a really, 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 really emotional whole sequence here where it's just so perfectly done. And the music is playing, and there's a great back and forth between Darlene and Dom. They're talking to each other, and she's like, Dom, it's not about like Dark Army. She's like, it's about letting go and like giving yourself a break. And Dom basically tells her that, like, you know, she needs to grow up. And you know, Darlene tells her, like, you know how I am on my own. She's like, I can't go on my own to Budapest. She's like, I have anxiety attacks. I freak out, which is so interesting because we know Elliot does that, but we didn't really know about Darlene. We've never really, I mean, we saw like glimpses of it where she was like talking to Tobias and she was having like some trouble, and she's had like anxiety attacks and stuff, but not like we see in this episode coming up. And I don't think we really like explore the fact that Darlene, not only does she care about Elliot, but she needs other people, and she needs Elliot because she just can't be on her own. She just can't be by herself. So they're talking about that. And it's really, really sad because Dom is like, I have to stay here. I have to go. And Darlene is like, what are you talking about, dude? She's like, your job is on hold. And she's like, and you can't see your family right now. So she's like, there's nothing for you to do here. She's like, just come to Budapest. And she's like, I can't. And she's like, wow, Dom, when you hold on to things, she's like, you really fucking latch on hard. And it's true. Like, that's what Dom does. So Dom holds on to things too much. And that's why she can't sleep. And that's all that stuff. And Darlene is like, I can't be alone. So it's like, it's this, like, they're crying, and she's like, no, you can do it on your own. And it's just really sad because they're both like crying at each other, and Darlene like breaks down, and it's just crazy. But they know that those are the truths, and they both have to kind of do it. So Darlene puts on her glasses, and she goes over to wait at the boarding pass, and she starts walking away. The music is playing, dude, and Dom is sad, and she's looking at Darlene, and she's like, there's tears running out her face, and Darlene keeps looking back, and the music is going. And Dom is like looking at her boarding pass, but she doesn't go for now. So then we cut to Darlene, who's sitting there at the boarding pass. Dom is like walking away, and it's like Logan Airport, and it's all gates, and she's walking away. Darlene is freaking out. She looks really sad. And the music adds to this so much. Dom actually gets to the point where it says no re-entry beyond this point. So it's like if she doesn't turn around now, she can't get back in. And so she gets to the exit. She sees no re-entry, and she holds there, and then she starts going back up the gates, and we're like, get on that plane, Dom. We're like, turn around, Dom, go on that plane. And Darlene's freaking out, and it's like, now boarding, eight, like groups B and C, and the music is going, dude, and Dom starts like kind of running back there, and we're like, yes, she's gonna do it. They're gonna go together, and the tickets are scanning, and then right when Darlene's about to scan her ticket, the guy reaches out and she pulls it back, and she's freaking out, and because she doesn't want to go alone, and so Darlene goes over. Dom is still running back, and then Darlene freaks out and she runs into the bathroom. And so it's like the boarding gate here, and then she runs directly down the hallway to the bathroom. And then as she runs into the bathroom, Dom comes over and she's got her boarding pass, and we're like, oh no, dude. So Darlene got off because she didn't want to go alone, and she figured she could just go link up with Dom and be like, I love you and all that stuff. And so she goes over and she can't do it. And then as she's getting out, Dom is like, oh no, I'm coming with you, basically. Now, this is an amazing sequence. Why they didn't just like text each other or call each other, I don't know. I mean, maybe at that point, well, I was gonna say maybe Dark Army is tracking them, but now we found out at this point that they don't care about them anymore. So I'm like, realistically, I don't understand why she didn't call her or text her and say, I'm coming, wait, or something, you know what I mean? But that kind of defeats the purpose of the moment. So Darlene goes in the bathroom. She freaks out. She has a full-on breakdown. She's breathing heavily. It's incredible acting by Carly. Like it like gave me anxiety watching it because it's so realistic. She goes down there and the camera work is so good because she's gripping the like the bathroom sink, and it's like the camera's like in on her hands, and it's just like she is having a full-on breakdown. There's a woman that comes in and she's like, "Are you okay?" And she's like, she just can't even respond to her, and she's looking down and she's freaking out. And she like literally has to like take her coat off, and like I think she has like a big coat on, and then sorry, I don't know why I'm cutting out here, guys. She has like a big coat on, and then like I think like another smaller coat or something. And she has to literally like throw those on the ground because she's like overheating and everything. And she's like, "Is that your plane that's being called?" And she's like, "Yeah." And she looks down and she's like, "Do you want me to like call for someone or something?" And she's like, "No." And then she's like shaking and stuff. And Darlene looks at herself in the mirror and she says, I can take care of myself. And she like convinces herself like it's time to stop letting go, or it's time to let go. And she's like, it's time to just take care of myself. And so we're like, okay, so Dom makes a choice there by going back, and Darlene makes a choice there. But it's so sad because we cut back to Dom, and she's on the plane, and she almost gets off the plane, but she doesn't. And the guy comes over, and she's like, "Ma'am, is everything okay?" And she's like, "No, I'm good." And he's like, "Is there anything missing?" And she looks over to the empty seat, and she's like, "No." And so Dom is reading a book. She passes out. We hear the plane take off, and the credits roll. So Darlene does not get on the plane. But and at first, and it's really sad because it's like, man, you just want these two to be together. Sorry, I don't know what's going on with the camera today, guys. But it's like you just want these two to be together, and it's like you just like this. You want that happy ending. You want that love story. The music's playing, and you're like, get over there, Dom. Like run. And you're like, go in the bathroom. It's like a horror movie when you're talking to the TV. I was literally like, I was tearing up 100%. But I was like yelling at the TV, and you're like cheering for them. But it's so tragic at the end where it's like Dom gets on the plane by herself and she takes off, and she could have left because she knew Darlene wasn't on the plane. But it's so cool, and I love the way Sam did this because it's like it's two people realizing that they need to kind of split apart, or just accept the truth where it's like Darlene is realizing that she needs to take care of herself and she needs to stop relying on Elliot and Dom. And she's always so attached to other people. And she's like, no, I can take care of myself. And she finally comes to that realization. And then Dom, on the other hand, who is holding on to everything, and Darlene says, like, you got to let shit go. She knows that she can't do anything. So she actually finally listens to Darlene and says, oh, yeah. And she goes to Budapest because she knows that she needs a break, and she knows that she needs a vacation, and she knows that she needs to let go. And now that she doesn't have any Dark Army on her, like Dom has been so obsessed with everything, and she doesn't let anything go. And, she doesn't go meet people with her Alexa and all that stuff. And so Darlene breaking her Alexa and then like talking to her and saying like, you need to let go. She's like, if you go back, Darlene tells her when they're talking in the airport, like, if you go back, you're just gonna go back to the grind like everyone else. And she's like, is that what you want? She's like, don't you want to take a break, like for yourself? And it's so crazy because they both make their own choices and they both realize that they helped each other because they both had to do the opposite. So even though we want them to just go, if it makes perfect sense because Darlene can't go on the plane with Dom because she can't just rely on people like that all the time, because she was like, I can't go by myself. And then Dom can't rely, like she can't let go of anything. So she does. It's so perfect. And I hope I did a decent job of explaining it. But the first time I was so sad that they like the credits roll and like they don't get on the plane and you're like, no. But this is obviously like wrapping up Dom and Darlene's story, because there's only 3 episodes left after this. So I think we just focus on Elliot the rest of the way here. But it's really tragic, but it's really beautiful at the same time, because it really is like they helped each other. And even though now realistically, I'm sure like they would have called each other or whatever, and she would have been like, what, you're in Budapest? And she's like, oh, I'll be on the next flight or whatever. But that's not the point, because the point is that she can't go because they have to take responsibility for themselves. And so it's just beautiful, and it's so well done. And I love the credits roll and you're like, wow. And it's just great. Okay, guys, White Rose for this week. I'm going to cheat again, and this episode is all about Dom and Darlene's relationship and their love for each other and how they help each other and work with each other, and they have to see the hard truths. And sometimes people, the ones that love you, they tell you things that you don't want to hear, but it's the truth. And just the back and forth and the love between Darlene and Dom here, I have to give another dual White Rose to Darlene and Dom. So Carly and Grace, they're both so good. It's their last episode, I think, together. I don't think there might be a brief appearance in the last 3 episodes, but for the most part, like this is their wrapping up their story for 2 incredible characters. And it's like they're just so good. And like it's so sad when they're telling each other stuff that, like, again, like I said, they don't want to hear. They know it's the truth. And so like that scene where they're kind of like yelling at each other. They're not really getting a fight, but they're like, Darlene's like, just come on with me. And she's like, I can't do that. And Darlene knows that like she needs to just learn, like fend for herself. So they have like that scene where they hug and they cry. It's just, it was super emotional. And then like when the music's playing, and then when Dom's like, you think Dom's gonna leave, and you're like, no, 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 like turn around. And then she does turn around, and they're like cheering in your seat, and you're like, and the music's going, and you're like, get back in there, Dom. And then for Darlene to leave at the last second, it's so sad but so beautiful. And yeah, both of them are just so good in this one. So the White Rose, or White Roses in this case, go to Grace Gummer and Carly Chaikin for their performances for pretty much the last time in Mr. Robot. Okay, guys, first score for this one. I have to be honest, I wasn't super crazy initially about this episode, but then talking about it, and then the latter half of the episode, there's 2 huge, sorry, I don't know why I keep cutting out so much today. There's 2 huge moments that I think really propel this episode as one of the better episodes in the series. The first one is the scene where they redistribute the wealth. For Darlene to say, for them to sit there, and she's like, hold on. And it's funny because Dom is giving her shit, and she actually kisses her to shut her up. And she's like, just shut the fuck up for a minute and just look. And then it's like, that's just that scene where all these extra actors that are like, just look like normal people, and they're just like smiling, and like one girl's gonna cry, and they're all like, one guy's like dancing around, and like it's so nice. It's just like such a nice moment. And like Darlene, for her to say like the greatest redistribution of wealth in history. And like that's, I just like immediately am like brought back to Mr. Robot when he says that to Elliot. And like that's the pilot episode, dude. And everything that they've worked on, that's what they did. And so obviously last episode was like the action and like the build up, and it was a triumphant moment last episode. But then for them to put that into place here, and it's so great that she just sits down at a bench, and she just like, she wanted to see it in person. She's like, watch this. And she just knows people are going to be happy. And it's like, I think she says like, we Robin Hooded those evil motherfuckers. And it's so great. That scene is amazing. I cried for that scene. The music was going, that was great. And then the whole sequence at Logan, dude, the whole sequence at the airport at the end was amazing. And like I said, I said before, it's tragedy, it's tragic and it's sad, but it's so beautiful and it's perfect because they know that they love each other so much that they know that they have to just do this. Now, whether they get back together after or whether she joins her or she goes back, whatever, we don't know if they even speak after this, but they just know that, even though there's a strong love there, this is what each of them needs to do. And it just so happens that it comes to the realization that maybe that means that they're not together. So I don't know. It's crazy, but for that reason, guys, for those two really big moments, an episode after we had the huge hack and the action and the music going and all that stuff, this was a little quieter, but then we had those big moments. With that being said, I'm going to give it a 9.4 because of those moments. It was just, man, it's so good. And we got Leon, dude. Leon is always awesome. And he never comes out of the bathroom. Oh, no, he does. Sorry. I guess he does eventually come back out. But yeah, him just like chilling. And it's great. And seeing Irving again for the last time. And the fact that he just tells them like that. Dark Army doesn't care about you guys. Like, they don't give a shit. And so like they were so obsessed with like being safe and like the Dark Army's gonna hunt them down. And Dom was so struck with fear at the Dark Army of killing her family and all that stuff. And then Irving's just like, dude, they don't give a shit about you. And he's like, okay, see you later. And it's funny because Irving is like such a nice guy too, where it's like, even though we saw, there's another line too. I don't want to forget. Dom says like, but you butchered Santiago when he went out of line. And he's like, oh yeah. He's like, that was fun. So you can tell he's like a sociopath, but he's also just like a super nice guy. So even though Irving can be triggered, this is like the nice version where he's like, well, Dom, he's like, oh, I hope you're doing well. And he's like, I'll talk to you later. I hope you're doing like, it's just like, he's just like a nice guy. So Bobby Cannavale, always amazing in that role. But this is his final appearance. And yeah, just a strong episode overall and a good way as we're kind of going towards the end here. An important episode and an emotional episode for sure. That's it. That's another episode of Hello Friends, 41 down. So guys, we are on to the final Blu-ray disc, which means we're on to the final 3 episodes, which means we have 3 weeks left of Mr. Robot, which is bittersweet, just like this episode. But yeah, we have a few more guys. We know we got to check in on Elliot. How does the story wrap up? I can't wait. I am going to bawl my eyes out like a baby at the finale because I remember most of the finale and it, to me, is so perfect and I cannot wait to watch it again. But it's also going to be the end of this review show, which is the whole reason I started this channel initially. And it's been a long time coming. And even though we skipped some weeks, it's for the most part been, when we finish it will be 44 weeks of reviews just for this show and my favorite show of all time. So it's kind of sad, but we are getting there towards the end, and it is nice to put a little bow on it towards the end. So thank you guys so much for checking out Project Potter. Me rambling about Mr. Robot, sharing this interest, guys. If you have friends that haven't seen the show, dude, do like I do. Tell them to watch it because it's so good. It's still somehow underrated, even though people agree that it's like one of the best shows of all time. I feel like so many people still don't watch Mr. Robot because they're like, oh, okay, well, I got lost in season 2 or whatever. Dude, it's so good. It's like one of the best shows ever. And pretty much objectively, like it's not just my opinion. So, but yeah, I'm rambling here, guys. Thanks for checking out Project Potter. Thanks for checking out Hello Friends. And until next time, guys, goodbye, friend.